All right, let's talk rankings, pound for pound. So these came out, and I just want to get your take on it. I don't think there's a lot of controversy here, but there was a little bit of shuffling. And Chimaev becomes champion of the world. That is his reward. His reward for a victory Saturday was champion of the world. But I would suggest for you, and I did suggest for you, that Dricus was also fighting for something, which was for a little bit of a nod on the pound for pound, whereas a week ago, Dricus was number 5. So pound for pound rankings come out, and I don't think this will surprise you. Number 1 in the world, Ilia Topuria. Number 2, Islam. Keep that in mind, because number 3 is Merab, and then Chimaev comes in number 4. I mean, in some ways, wrestling is back, right? There's a tremendous nod to wrestling. Ilia Topuria, who's gone on to do a great job with boxing, but has always paid respect to the sport that he did first, which was Greco-Roman wrestling. You then look at Islam, very grappling, very wrestling heavy. You look at Merab, great conditioning, but on top of everything, he essentially only does wrestling. You then look at Chimaev, who comes in number 4, and I just want to know what you guys think about that. There is some missing and matching that can be done here. I mean, there is a large dialogue about Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. And that fight gets more interesting as time goes on. But let me just throw you a scenario. Which would you rather have, and you can only have one? Would you rather see Islam versus Ilia Topuria? Or would you rather see Khamzat Chimaev versus Islam? And the likelihood of you getting one of those fights does exist. The likelihood that you get both of them is rather nil. So when I stare at that, I do wonder, how do you have champions behind non-champions? Just out of a respect, just out of a rhetorical, if you had to make an argument, you're the one that comes up with the rankings. There is no criterion that has ever been made public that you have to follow. But if it's your own ranking list, wouldn't you have a difficult time bringing in a non-champion and putting them in front of the guy that is a champion? Because it's what you did with Islam. Islam is not a champion of any division. And if champion is to supersede ranked athlete, then it would be impossible, it seems, to have current champions behind somebody that is a ranked athlete. But they still got Islam at 2. Now, the reason I make that argument is because I really believe that they would like to have Islam at 1. I believe that the integrity of our rankings committee is so small that they won't even put the guy that they think is number 1 at number 1, but they'll allow him to be number 2 as long as it's not 1. And you're breaking all of the rules of, well, he can't go in front of a champion when he's not a non-champion. And even if this is for the interim and just right now, and even if he lost it due to paperwork, we still can't put a non-champion in front of champions. Well, you did. You put him in front of every single champion not named Ilia Topuria. So your integrity was as such that you allowed an exception to your own rule, but you only allowed it one time, and now you've got an undefeated world champion in Chimaev. Islam is neither undefeated nor a world champion. And you have Merab, who's got the longest win streak in the history of the division. I'm only bringing that to your attention. I don't overly have a huge problem with it, but there was something that went down a number of years ago between Team Khabib and Chimaev. And we never got told about it. We only saw it from a distance. Do you guys remember this? When Chimaev breaks into the UFC and 8 days later returns to the UFC, he was 24 years old. And Chimaev used to have a nickname. Do you remember what it was? He is now the Wolf. Do you know his original nickname? Khabib 2.0. That is what he called himself. That's what he was referred to. That is what he would be introduced as. That's what in all of the articles where now you see the Wolf, it used to say Khabib 2.0. And after 2 fights, he realized, hey, listen, I gotta forge my own path. And he dropped the moniker. He came up with the Wolf and said, don't call me Khabib 2.0 anymore. And then something happened where these two facets ran into each other. And there was a dialogue, and it wasn't overly pleasant, but it did leave and it did end, perhaps with a handshake, at a minimum with a smile. I saw it. I saw the exchange, as did you guys. And Chimaev did stick with the Wolf, not the Khabib 2.0, but he also quit paying homage to that group. He did not attack them. He didn't throw a stone. But after whatever this meeting was that got picked up on camera, it did become very clear he's in a different group. And they're over here. And I just wonder what you guys think of that. I wonder what would that brief interaction do in terms of making you want to see that match. Islam is in a wildly unique position to win a second championship, but to have the potential to put on size and go for a third. You just don't see that. Alex Pereira has already won 2 championships. Islam is going to try to win 2 championships. Ilia Topuria has done the 2 championships. But the idea that Ilia Topuria could move to 135, I think you would put it as impossible. And the idea that Ilia Topuria would move to 170, I also think that you would put as not possible. It is possible with Islam. It is possible for him to go in and get the 70-pound belt, and he's already talking about dropping back down to 85, but that isn't very realistic. I don't know that Islam is aware of how much he's going to enjoy his life and enjoy his profession at 170 pounds as compared to how he did at 155. And perception being everything in this sport, the 70-pound title is more respected than the 55-pound title, even if the athletes aren't. I'm just sharing for you. Perception is, of the 2 belts, the heavier belt comes with more acclaim and esteem. And I think it's a wild idea that Islam would ever drop back down to 155. But we could see a scenario, and I'll just remind you, with Chimaev, he weighed in underweight. I'm not quite sure that happened. Chimaev did cut weight. Chimaev is big. He's a fine-sized 185-pounder, but either way, the record will reflect he weighed in at 183 pounds. So is it possible to get Chimaev and Islam together? Is that even something that anybody would want to see? Would they be fighting for something? Is there any heat? Is there any drama? Is there any way that we would be forced into wanting to do that? And I feel like that first shot has been fired. It was fired by the rankings committee. The rankings room took an undefeated world champion in Khamzat Chimaev and placed him 2 spots below a non-undefeated, non-world champion. What do you think about that?